Okay, Sinead O'Donovan, I'm thankful to have you back on the podcast again. I wanted to talk again about your wonderful compression garments because these are actually this is a product that I recommend I probably on a daily basis for all sorts of different reasons. And so I thought after I get you to introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your product, I wanted to go and almost chunk it into themes of when I tend to recommend prolapse symptoms, incontinence or bladder leaks related to the core, like pelvic stability, pelvic pain, or and back pain. So, before we get into that, can I get you to tell a little bit about yourself, Sinead, and talk a little bit about SRC and how it came to be?
SRC was, I guess, born out of necessity because I didn't have particularly joyous pregnancies. That was many, many years ago. My eldest is 20, nearly 27 now. Um, yeah, I had a lot of pelvic girdle pain, and with my second and third pregnancy, I developed vulvovaricosities, which were particularly nasty and uncomfortable. I found it very difficult to find anything in the marketplace at the time that was really comfortable. And that's what drove me after my third child to start to investigate and develop things that were could be worn all day safely. You didn't have to adjust them. You put it on and you get on with your day. And you don't really know that they're on, but they're functioning with you through proprioception and biofeedback. So the garments don't need to be tight. And that was something that I guess if you apply basic rules of physics, if you apply a force to something, that will apply the same force back to you. And I use that basic principle to develop a fabric that was safe in that it had to have really good stretch and recovery, but it wasn't too tight. Um, and it was moisture wicking, it was breathable, it had to have all of these specific components, which took quite a long time and expense. But we've ended up with a really, really high quality fabric that behaves in exactly the way we want it to behave, and it's safe for use 24/7. We then went about creating multiple sizes. So, depending on the product, we can have up to 10 sizes within the range. So, if you're measured properly, you will get the right size. So, that was 17 years ago, and we've stood the test of time. We're a household name here in Australia, and we're certainly a very well respected company. And we're now known worldwide to be kind of the leaders in compression for women's health.
And I always find like there's actually more and more like research coming out about, different things in the area of women's health. And so there's more research to support the use of compression for all of this. But I also say too, though, it's like it's the people that come in and give the reviews that I think speak so loudly. I
Yeah.
made sure to include some of those in this episode because I just feel like their words represent what so many people say. And so I think it's something we just don't hear enough about the benefits of using things like compression, but we do this all the time. I have to use analogies all the time. Like, for example, a knee brace to play tennis or a sports bra for running. Like, we use compression for a lot of other things. And this is just specific to the pelvic area. Um, I did not know about SRC when I had my kids 12 and almost 9 years ago. I actually hadn't heard about it. And so it's more something that I've learned more about recently, especially your products. And so I've always had different things that I have found in the community or online. And so I show people these are different things that you can order. And I'm so thankful to have samples from you to be able to show people. And explain to them. I always say I like these because they give like 360 degrees of compression. And so you've got I'll pull out the different garments that they can use like post-surgical or in pregnancy or postpartum. And I just thought we could go through just some of the things, some of the symptoms that people describe, and let's just talk those through. So
Yes.
one big one is Sorry, I just got to turn this vibration off here. Oh, sorry. One big one is symptoms of like core issues, I would say, in pregnancy and postpartum. And these are people that either are like, how do I be mindful of what I can do to stay in touch with my core in pregnancy? And also, what can I do to help my recovery after? And I think in the
Hmm.
past, we've always told women, and this wasn't from research, this was just from lack of education, like, don't do any core exercise in pregnancy
Yeah.
and be careful postpartum, I think is what we always told people. But as we learn more, we're learning the benefits of the tissues in the abdomen healing in a shortened position.
Yep.
And we're learning about the benefits of starting early muscle activation and being able to
Yep.
progress. And I definitely find when I put the garments on, and other people will say that I feel like my muscles are there, like my muscles are at my call a little bit easier. And also, I can just feel that snug feeling. So, can you just talk a little bit about, you know, expand on that for me? Like, what is that garment doing?
And if I go back to what I said originally, it's that equal and opposite reaction. So it's not something that behaves like a brace or a splint. It's something that works with you, and it's like reminding your muscle to work. So your own body, it's encouraging your own body to do the work with you as opposed to something that's going to brace you. It's a completely different concept to a splint. It's that biofeedback. So if you apply a force to something, that will apply the same force back to you. So you get this kind of you get a proprioceptive loop happening. And that's why you feel that your muscles are more engaged when you're wearing the garment, because it's because of that biofeedback and that proprioceptive loop happening.
Yeah. And
Does that make sense?
absolutely. I definitely can say I noticed this when I was working on things postpartum, and I explained to my clients because they often have the question, will this make my muscles work less? Will this make my muscles
Yeah.
lazy? No. And quite often I say, like, notice when you put them on, do your exercises. I might say, like, do your one set of your exercises with them on, and then take it off. Sometimes I even say I take it further and I say just first do a few of the exercises without the garment, put them on, notice how the exercise feels easier and that you're able to connect more to what I'm suggesting you do. And
Yeah.
then possibly, as we start going down in weeks postpartum, let's start kind of taking it off for another repetition so that your brain is like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to feel like when I had the compression on. So I definitely
Yep.
see this is a population that I recommend to all the time,
Yep.
like pregnancy related changes, or also to post hysterectomy,
Yeah.
post other abdominal surgeries. And there's another kind of like lady that gave a review here that was post abdominal surgery, and she herself is a massage therapist, and she's like, I recommend this to people all the time now because as soon as I put those on, I had less kind of like fear of movement and just more
Yep. Yep.
connection to my body.
Yep. And if you have less fear of movement, your breathing is going to be so much better. And if you've had surgery and you've had a general anesthetic, you want to be able to breathe properly. You want that increased gaseous exchange. You don't want to be shallow breathing because you're afraid to move because of the wound. You're hunched over because you're trying to protect it. If you're doing that, your breathing is shallow. So you don't have that um, proper gaseous exchange. The garment allows you to stand up straight. It protects your wound. It allows you to mobilize. And, mobility is key post any kind of surgery.
I was so happy to hear. I was having a conversation with one of our local OBGYNs and just giving her, like, just letting her know the benefits of compression. And then I had a client come in not long ago that said to me, I had so and so as a surgeon, and she said to me, there are benefits of compression post C-section. So I was like, yes, she's kind of
Yeah.
giving that information out now.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so let's talk a little bit now about let's stick with the theme right now of postpartum. And I want to say Another thing I hear from a lot of postpartum women is the feeling of I don't have much balance or I
Yes.
feel shaky in my legs. And I was like, of course. And I show them I have a pelvic model that has give built into it. And I say, like, when we're pregnant, our pelvis has to shift to a goal of mobility. So we
Yeah.
have a very stable pelvis, but it has to have more give built into it in pregnancy, which we want. But the day after that baby comes out, we want stability again. And you require stability to carry a baby around. You require stability to feel strong and balanced. And I'm not surprised you feel this lack of stability. And a lot of times, what I would give as a physio are some basic pelvic strengthening exercises, not just of the pelvic floor, but like the muscles on the outside of the pelvis
Yeah.
to help give that feeling of like tension or closure, if you will. And whereas, like, who can think about that at all times? And I say, well, but also the benefits of compression early postpartum would be that you get some of that built in feeling of closure or feeling of stability so that when you're up
Yeah.
and down thousands of times a day, you have a bit more security built in.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, it's, I guess, the most common thing that women say when they put the recovery short on post vaginal delivery or C-section delivery. They feel supported, they feel stable. And a lot of women will say, I don't really know how to describe it, but I kind of feel back together.
Yes. Yeah. Hmm.
And they can't really explain it any further, but they say when they take it off, they really notice the difference. And of course, suddenly you've given birth, your center of gravity has changed month by month throughout pregnancy. And suddenly it's changing again, but it's going to change much faster in that recovery period. So of course they're going to feel unstable.
Hmm.
It makes perfect sense.
Hmm.
And your pelvis has done all sorts of stuff to accommodate that baby. It might be twins, it might be triplets, it might be a singleton. Um, it's got to prepare for birth, whether that's a vaginal birth or you end up having a cesarean. Your pelvis is constantly changing, but then it's wanting to change back, and this compression really helps stabilize it without splinting it,
Hmm.
because splinting it is restricting it. Providing compression and support to it strengthens it and it allows it safely to come back to normal. But also, this specific gusset piece in all our garments, which is in triplicate, it sits on the perineum and it provides really lovely proprioceptive feedback to the pelvic floor muscles. Now, your pelvic floor muscles are weakened during pregnancy somewhat. You want to create some support and strength for those postpartum. And that gusset piece will do that postpartum for you and help do that in addition to the program that your physical therapist will put you on, or your physiotherapist, as they're called here in Australia. But also in pregnancy, the pregnancy garment has that same gusset piece. So it helps protect your pelvic floor during pregnancy. And you don't see that when you look at the garment. But
Hmm.
that's the technology in the garment. And that's the difference. Because these panels are multi-layered, the panels themselves are crossed, or each piece of fabric is crossed. So your compression is maintained. You don't see that with the naked eye, but that's how it's constructed to provide the user with the best possible compression garment out there without it being tight.
And that's what a lot of people describe. If I move now to kind of like symptoms of prolapse, heaviness, pressure, like this can come for people not just during pregnancy, but maybe people that actually have prolapse. So you mentioned before like vulvar varicosities, like sometimes it's just like an engorgement of the
Yeah,
genitalia that a lot of people, I think of that when they say, I am so swollen, through
yeah,
my legs or through my genitalia. I'm like, okay, let me show you a product. So I get a lot of positive feedback from that. But also, I have a lot of people that, let's say, have a difficult vaginal birth, and there's been a lot of trauma there. or people that do have prolapse that maybe don't want surgery or aren't surgical candidates. So anyone that's kind of feeling that lack of support underneath, this would be another recommendation. And that's what you're talking about with that gusset support. Like I've put the samples on before. I'm like, whoa, this is nice from the bottom. I wish I would have had these post my vaginal births. But we do know, like, and this is, I hear this from clients too, but we do know from some research that it does provide like less heaviness and pressure and less pain. And
Yep.
so, and again, anything that feels similar to the abdomen, if the undercarriage feels more supported, often you can get more active recruitment of the muscles. And I
Correct.
think this is where like it all just ties together because if someone is feeling that heaviness and pressure in their undercarriage, like in the soft tissue of their undercarriage, I would also be giving them pelvic strengthening exercises, perhaps in their
Yep.
glutes or in their hips, to try to get compression of the
Yep.
pelvis to help the pelvic floor. And so I'm giving them exercises and strategies to help feel more support. But I would say the compression takes it one step further. And this is no
Mhm.
different than like, okay, you have pain when you in your knee. I'm going to give you some exercises to work on your knee strength and your the ability to move quickly, but I do want you to put on a knee brace when you play tennis just so that you don't have to be thinking so hard or like just
Yeah,
have some of that
exactly.
compression built in. So again, you can just see that that 360 degrees compression is coming at it from so many angles. And I think another thing that I notice is when someone feels vulnerable, for example, in their undercarriage, I feel their tendencies often just to squeeze. It's just
Yep.
like when you ask them, I squeeze, but sometimes their squeeze is from high up. Like they're just trying to
Yes.
kind of like engage core muscles for any type of tension. And they can start to realize that, oh, this always holding is actually maybe pushing down into my
Yes.
undercarriage.
Yeah, which is potentially, increasing the risk of
Or
making their
prolapse.
prolapse worse or their stress urinary incontinence. The other thing, postpartum, if you've had vaginal delivery or a C-section delivery, but say in this case, a vaginal delivery with an episiotomy or a tear, stitches, you want to create a higher level of compression in that perineal area to push all the products of inflammation back into the central system because you want to keep them central. You don't want them draining further into the perineum and into the legs. And that will encourage recovery of those wounds better than if you didn't have compression because it will stop that pooling of the products of inflammation in and around those wounds. And by providing compression, you push the products of inflammation out of the wound, and then you get really nice, rich blood supply, and rich blood supply increases the rate of healing.
Mhm. I've had some people describe one lady that I discussed like her feedback. She just kept saying like my legs felt fresher. I felt fresher. Like when I wore them, I just, it just
Yeah.
my legs didn't feel as heavy at the end of the day. Yeah.
Well, the legging, if she had worn the legging,
Yeah.
she would have had graduated compression in the legging. So it's a grade one level of compression. So she would have had really nice venous return throughout the day. And then that gusset piece again will encourage that extra venous return from that perineal area. So it's protecting her while she's moving.
Hmm. Can I go back to post C-section because something came up. I had a client who I think a lot of times I find I'm careful with how much guidance I give in pregnancy because I can just feel their head is spinning, right? With like they've got so many things to think about. And sometimes it's hard to buy something when you don't know how you're going to feel after. Okay. So I always just try to give people like, here's my contact information. Contact me if you have any questions. But that's sometimes when I might recommend compression. I might not recommend it till after, it just depends on the person. Okay. And I had this one woman that planning for a vaginal birth, emergency C-section, I think quite a bit of trauma after, but she was feeling very vulnerable and sore through her incision.
Yeah.
So she went online onto Amazon and bought a compression garment that would ship to her door the next day. And
Mhm.
and then she came in and she said, I've done something wrong. I didn't see her till 6 weeks after or something. I've done something wrong. I actually bought this compression or this belly band, but it had a lot of Velcro and a lot of abrasive material. And the poor girl, like, because she was so scared to look at her scar from some trauma,
Oh my
she
God.
didn't realize, and she had some decreased sensation, that she had kind of opened up the area and caused a lot of friction
Yep.
because some of those, the garment was pretty narrow in where it went around her abdomen. And so the poor thing, like, I actually do think she made it worse. And so my question for you, and again, this is a podcast, so people can't see us show the garment, but this is a very smooth material, um, with with seams very well placed, and like nice glide over any tissues. But can you think of reasons that maybe some of the providers that recommend your product have wanted to wait a certain number of days? I just want you to touch on, I always default to the provider. Ask your provider if they have any reason why you can't wear it. But like, do you find when they're given them in Australia in the hospital, for example, they're applying it day one after
Yep.
C-section? Yeah.
Yep. There are a lot of women that will wear it day one, especially those women who aren't affected by fluid. We encourage women to buy it have themselves measured at 36 weeks, so they've got it in their hospital bag. Um, and to start wearing it day one, day two, day three, because usually here they're in hospital till 4 days or so post C-section delivery. And we encourage their partners to help them put it on, because once they've had their drip and their drain or catheter out and have a shower day one, they can get into the garment. And what we say is, if it's really tight, take it off because you're holding fluid, and then try it the next day and start to wear it to comfort. There is no reason that you cannot start wearing this day one, because it will allow you to mobilize much more easier, and it will apply really lovely compression to the wound. And like we said earlier, push all those products of inflammation out of it. It will protect the wound while you're moving. And you're going to be moving because you've got to feed and bath that baby. You're up and down, in and out of bed to attend to that newborn. So you need to be able to move with some kind of comfort, and the garment will allow you to do that.
Another thing that came up is similar to prolapse. Like, prolapse is like pressure out the bottom, right? And incontinence is similar. So incontinence is also pressure out the bottom, just with urine. Um, I'll never forget one woman who said to me, and I think for the same reasons that it helps with prolapse, we can extrapolate and say that it would also help with incontinence. It provides that support from the bottom. You don't feel the need to squeeze the abdomen so much if you're feeling vulnerable. Anytime I think we feel weak or have the perception of weakness, we hold tension, and that may not help with incontinence. But I had one postpartum woman that she was having some back pain and just overall kind of like moaning with movement. And so she was someone I recommended, like, try it out. And she came in, she's like, oh my God, game changer. And I'm not leaking. She said, I didn't this was a bonus for me. She wasn't even thinking this garment would stop me from leaking. But for the same things, like when someone's leaking, I'd be looking at, yeah, do they have good pelvic floor coordination? Are they doing a lot of squeezing from high or above? And what's their pelvic stability like? Because their pelvic
Yep.
floor only works as good as everything around there. So what are all the things I can help this person with? And sometimes it's too hard to be thinking of all those things, and having that more kind of like biofeedback, like you said, that feedback into the body of like, this is how you should feel, helps people execute their movements better.
Yep. Yeah, it absolutely does. And we were actually shocked when we um, tested the populations, like the stress urinary incontinence population and the uterine and bladder prolapse population, at the results from both studies. Now, we just collected the raw data. The statistician did all the analysis, and once we sent all the raw data to the statistician, so they both studies were statistically significant. So in simple terms, as their incontinence decreased, their quality of life increased, because we had some people in these studies that were housebound because they didn't want to go out, because they were afraid they couldn't find a toilet. They didn't want to be going to the toilet all the time when they were socializing with their friends. So it was easier for them to stay home. So what the garment provided them was a sense of freedom to be able to socialize again, which is fantastic.
Hmm. Another thing I can think about for some people, like post surgery or postpartum or just in general, like back pain. So I always say to people, I don't love the idea that there's a perfect posture because there's lots of different postures and they're all good. But some people live in an extreme posture. So, like I'm thinking of a postpartum woman where our center of gravity changes so much, our belly gets big. So you'll see a lot of women start to thrust their hips a bit more forward and their rib cage kind of comes back just because the belly's getting so big. They start to live more in their heels. But that posture, although very normal in pregnancy and there for a reason, when the baby comes out, I think because of so much weakness and just because like just weakness everywhere, we're
Yeah.
weaker. Plus, we are kind of used to this new posture. So
Yes.
I show people it's kind of like rib cage forward, rib cage backwards, hips forward. And in that extreme posture, everything's just taken to its extreme. And things like hemorrhoids can be worse, things like pressure in the vagina, things like urinary leakage, core feeling like it's like
Yep.
back pain, like all of those things I point out to people. Do you see how this posture might lend to that? And I find that the compression, because you're getting compression front, back, side, and side, it's almost like it's trying to encourage the body back to this Jenga position. Like
Yep. Yep.
it helps kind of give them that feeling of like, yeah, I'm lined up more. And usually when you get people in that more kind of like rib cage over pelvis position,
Yeah.
they notice, oh, I don't have the same pressure in my anus. I don't have the same pressure in my vagina. My pelvic floor works better. I breathe easier. My core doesn't feel so poochy. Like they can recognize that feeling, but they can't necessarily replicate it all day. So
No.
having the compression on, they're like, I just can like just do my thing and feel more lined up.
Yep. Absolutely. And I think that predominantly comes from the I mean, a large percentage of women will have some form of diastasis or separation post birth, and their their trunk will be weaker, or their core will be weaker. And yes, they have taken on a position during pregnancy, depending on the size of the baby, depending on how tall they are. There are multiple factors that you well know that will change their posture during pregnancy, and their past medical history, depending on, if they have any underlying conditions. So there are multiple factors that can influence their posture during and post. But having compression to the front, to the back, to the pelvic, to the perineum slash pelvic floor area, it allows their diaphragm, their back, their core, and their pelvic floor, the four groups of muscles, to work synergistically. So their posture, secondary to that, is much better.
Hmm. Exactly. So details now. So one of the reasons I'll be honest, I feel so comfortable recommending it because I always say you get what you pay for. Okay. So for example, that lady that ordered the garment shipped overnight came from Amazon, like $30. And like I always show people like you're gonna get what you pay for. So yes, you're gonna pay more for this garment, but I always feel like first of all, people's reviews are always so positive. I also feel so much more, let's say, comfort in knowing that you have such great customer service. So that helps a lot because I think that people would be more hesitant to spend if they what if I'm not satisfied, right? So can what I usually tell people is I usually say, um, what do you have to lose? Try it. And most of them are like, oh gosh, like this is amazing. Sometimes they need to adjust sizing. But some of
Yep.
the most common questions I get are, yeah, you already answered it. Should I order in pregnancy? And how do I know like what my measurements are now and what they will be later? So, can you just, I know you can't speak to someone's specific measurements, but can you give an idea to someone like what would they do that say
Okay,
on your website? Like, how do they know what to order when they're not pregnant?
okay. So if in pregnancy, there's a video, there's a sizing chart, and there's a video with every product on the website. So they need to look at the video. The key here is do not measure yourself. Have somebody else measure you. I mean, you would measure all the time, so you know how simple and easy measurement is. Um, but for somebody who's never done this before, the video is a great guide. The guide for pregnancy is stay within your size. If you're ordering when you're pregnant for recovery, do it at around 36 weeks. We have basically a 4-day business day delivery to Canada and to the US. So, you don't need to order weeks and weeks in advance. Have yourself measured. If you're carrying fluid on your fingers and on your feet, you will need to allow for that within the measurement. But the best thing to do is to have the measurement taken, contact our customer service, say, I'm 36 weeks pregnant, I've just had myself measured, I'm halfway into the size, I'm I'm halfway into the size, but I am carrying fluid. Would you suggest I stay in the same size, or would you suggest I go down? If you're halfway or 3/4 of the way into the size, you should be fine. But if you were just into the size, if you were a centimeter or so into the size, you would go down a size. But our advice to you would be you will not potentially get into this garment for the first 3, 4, 5 days until some of that fluid is gone. But you will get better longevity out of the garment as time goes on, because you don't want to buy the size that you're in right now because you're carrying fluid, because it's going to be too big for you within a month. But we're here to help. Our customer service, we feel, is second to none. We go above and beyond. We have 100% money back guarantee. We exchange product. We exchange size, no problem. Generally at our cost, nationally, definitely, and we help you internationally. So you've got, as you said, Melissa, you've got nothing to lose as the customer. And if you're unsure, reach out to us, on at info@srchealth.com, or DM us on Facebook or Instagram, and we get back to you straight away.
Well, that's one thing that I've always felt like most comfortable with as a practitioner is I'm not spending someone else's money, because otherwise, I want them to just try it on because I'm pretty confident you're going to like it. And worst case scenario, you don't.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I have like really enjoyed having your product in my little basket so that I can show people, because the number of people that thank me for telling them about it is a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We
So.
ship a lot every single day to Canada and the
Mhm.
US, like quite large numbers. Yeah.
It's great. Well, thank you so much for like if there's anything else that you feel like I haven't asked you, Sinead, that we want to make sure we include in this conversation. Can you think of anything? I'll make sure to put in the link for your website and a discount code for everybody.
Yeah.
But is there anything else that you think I should make sure I ask you?
I think my parting message to people listening to this is don't assume you are a specific size. Just because you were a size 6 pre-pregnancy, you may not be a size 6 now. And please have yourself measured, and please look at the measurement video once or twice so that the person measuring you can do it properly. And if you have any trouble, reach out to Melissa or reach out to us, because we're here to help.
So, well, thank you so much for your product and for your time, Sinead.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Because of that compression feeling, and I wore them, to be honest, like almost truthfully like every day, especially in later in pregnancy. I wore them almost every day, anytime that I worked out, every time that I like went to work. And I don't know if that also contributed to me not getting swelling, but it kept my legs feeling incredibly fresh all throughout the day and into the evening. When I would be doing workouts later in pregnancy, I really noticed that I needed that support anytime that I was working out versus I would, wear some of my other non-pregnancy related garments. I noticed a complete difference to the point where I almost only exclusively wore the SRC pants for every single workout later in pregnancy. Yeah, because I love them so much and my job was like business casual, I was able to wear them like at my work all the time. Like I'd wear them with dresses. I would wear them with like long blouses.
You said try it. And so my initial reason was because my labia felt full and heavy. And I tried it. And that symptom, along with other symptoms, was pretty much immediately improved. I had some discomfort in my joints or bones in the pelvic floor area. And I found that wearing the shorts didn't eliminate the pain, but it reduced the pain. And so I could work out for longer in my pregnancy than I was able to do in my first pregnancy. Wearing the compression shorts allowed for better mind muscle connection. So then I could more effectively do the exercises that my physio provided.
I definitely could tell the days that I didn't wear it versus the days that I did wear it. Mentally, it helped with taking some of that fear away from movement. So it allowed me to move a lot more because I felt that support. When I started going back to work, I even wore them underneath work pants, just to provide that extra support because it did help me like mentally as much as it helped me physically. I just felt safer wearing them because it provided that extra support. I wore them when I started exercising a little bit more, going for walks, anything that I felt I needed that extra support, I was basically wearing them. I was lucky enough to have my insurance cover the cost of them completely. So I just had my physio write a prescription for them and I sent that into my benefits and I was reimbursed for the entire amount.